For too long, the Murdoch family have had too much control over the media. Tabloid newspapers, such as The Sun and the News of the World, have been reduced to using sensationalism to sell newspapers. For too long, they were completely untouchable.
The Prime Minister admitting that politicians and the press have become too cozy and promising a massive investigation as the turmoil that has brought down one of the nation's oldest newspapers there is leading to arrests happening right now. ABC's Jeffrey Kaufman is in London with the latest. Jeffrey, this story just continues to unfold at a massive rate.
It sure does, Elizabeth. This really is an earthquake here. Take a look at the morning papers here. The Daily Telegraph, goodbye, cruel world. Rupert Murdoch owns a bunch of papers here. His Sun, World's End, The Times, he also owns that, hacked to death. This scandal has rocked his media empire to the core.
As for my comments, Mr. Chairman, and my statement, which I believe was around the closure of the News of the World newspaper.
Before you get to that, I would just like to say one sentence. This is the most humble day of my life.
Every day we are bombarded with the latest celebrity news and constant front-page revelations about TV shows like X Factor. But what effect does this have?
And one is this thing about, the bankers. Well, it's not just the bankers, is it? It's every boss. It's the boss of every big company and of every small company and their political representatives and their organisations like, the CBI, the Tory Party, the Liberal Democrats, the enormous PR industry, all the different ways that the capitalist class organises itself. It's not just the bankers. It's not just some naughty part of the system that if you could cut it off, everything else would work fine. The problem is that all the means of production, and not merely the banks, are in the hands of people who live off the profit created for them by others.
As we move through our everyday lives, we are bombarded with the latest news. Tabloid newspapers have the highest readership of any newspaper, but they constantly avoid serious news stories which directly affect their readership. Instead, they use sensationalist news stories. Could tabloid newspapers be misinforming their readership by avoiding news stories that actually matter? If a paper chooses to focus on a celebrity news story instead of the Eurozone crisis, is their readership as aware of the crisis which is affecting their lives as they should be? I was talking to a friend of mine recently about making this film. She told me a story about a friend of hers who had worked in the Irish Daily Mirror. More recently, she had applied for a job as a consultant at an accountancy hiring firm. During the interview, it came out that the girl in question had no idea what the Eurozone crisis is or why Greece was in so much economic turmoil. This could partly be attributed to the fact she only ever read the Irish Daily Mirror, a tabloid newspaper. Myself and Emmett set out to see if this was the same for other people. What newspaper would you say you read the most?
Probably the Daily Journal or the Sun.
Sun. If you had to read a newspaper, which newspaper would you generally read?
The Sun.
Sun? Mirror. What would you read?
Really? The Sun if I'm at home.
Right. Do you get it regularly or just once or twice a week?
Regularly.
Regular. That's grand.
I will read the Sun all the time, like.
It's just about newspapers, so always read newspapers, right?
Yeah.
Which one would you read?
The Daily News or Daily Journal.
Read it yourself.
Daily Star.
Sun.
Daily Star.
Mirror.
Mirror as well.
That's grand. You read them regularly enough, yeah?
That's right.
It's just the only other thing you need to ask is a few like general knowledge questions, just to see what news stories you're reading. Like, do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's grand. Just a couple of news questions. See what the last news story you read was. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what he did, or what he was president of?
No.
No, that's grand. Muammar Gaddafi is?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
He was killed.
Yeah. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's grand. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is? Yeah. Yeah. Do you know who Muammar Gaddafi is?
Oh, he done something in Africa.
Do you know what George Osborne does?
No.
No. Do you know what George Osborne does?
No.
That's right. Do you know what George Osborne does? No. George Osborne does.
No.
No, that's great. Do you know who George Osborne is? No. Do you know what George Osborne does? No.
He's in the MP or something like that?
Yeah. Do you know what George Osborne does?
He's the Chancellor of the Executive.
Yeah. Can you tell me what George Osborne does?
Secretary or something, isn't it?
Close enough.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's great. He's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Do you know who Angela Merkel is?
No.
And do you know what? Do you know who Angela Merkel is?
No.
No, that's great. Who Angela Merkel is?
Don't
No, that's great. Who Angela Merkel is?
No.
That's great. Do you know who Angela Merkel is? Chairman, Chancellor. Perfect. Do you know who Angela Merkel is?
No, but I've heard the name.
Great thing. That's great. Can you tell us who Angela Merkel is?
Who?
Angela Merkel.
She not have something to do with murder in Halloween? And maybe I'm completely confused about that.
No.
He was racist at the weekend on the train.
No, that's. I never heard of this. Last one. Do you know who got thrown in the X Factor?
Aye.
Who was it?
Should be.
That's grand.
I got it without hearing that.
That's grand. Do you know who got thrown out of X Factor at the weekend?
Yeah. We should be.
We should be. That's it.
I thought that.
That's grand. That's awesome. Do you know who got kicked off X Factor at the weekend?
We should be.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Who got kicked out of X Factor last weekend?
Oh, it should be.
We should be. Do you know who got thrown out of X Factor at the weekend?
No, the only thing I could tell you is that Justin Bieber was on it from the amount of abuse he was getting on Facebook, and that'd be about it.
Who got thrown out of X Factor at the weekend? No. Do you know who got thrown out of X Factor at the weekend?
I watch X Factor.
Ah, that's right. That's it, thank you.
Cause this is my United States of whatever. And this is my United States of whatever. And this is my United States of whatever. Cause this is my United States of whatever. And this is my United States of whatever.